This week on Inside Athletic Training, we welcome in Milwaukee Brewers Major League head strength and conditioning coach, Jason Meredith. Jason talks through the importance of the athletic training staffs and strength and conditioning staffs working together to create the best performance staff possible. Enjoy the show. All right, Jason, welcome to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. Excited to have you on. Today we have a special episode here with you. A couple weeks ago, you presented to PBATS during the educational symposium, like Ken Crenshaw, who was our previous guest here. We spoke with Ken a lot about building the ultimate sports medicine and performance team, and that's something I'm really excited to hear from you on. You gave a great presentation on integrating strength and conditioning into the athletic training room. You have background in both areas, which would be interesting to hear from you. Before we get into your presentation, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, let our audience know where you're from, how you got into what you're doing today, and also your current affiliation with Milwaukee Brewers.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, and again, thanks for having me on here. And again, you mentioned the presentation I did there with PBATS and that symposium. Really grateful to be, asked to participate in that. As a, I would say, former athletic trainer, but still certified, still kind of practice. Just not employed in that role currently. It was an honor to kind of be a part of that and present to the students and part of that education process. Myself, currently, I'm the head strength conditioning coach with the Milwaukee Brewers. This upcoming 2025 season will be my ninth with the team. My third as the head strength conditioning coach here. Before that, I spent 5 seasons as the assistant in the major leagues. And then I spent 1 year with our rehab team down here in Arizona as the rehab strength conditioning coach, where I worked with all of our rehab athletes from major league, minor league, kind of all across the org. I think that year I had my hands on close to 70 to 80 of our players in the org. Mm-hmm. So a vast range of injuries, and just all things you see in baseball: shoulders, elbows, hamstrings, obliques, you kind of name it. Yeah. Before my time here with the Brewers, I spent 6 years with the Philadelphia Phillies in the minor leagues, 3 as their strength conditioning coordinator, the previous 3 as an affiliate, and then I spent 1 year with the Yankees in their AA affiliate in Trenton.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely a vast experience in the big leagues and the minor leagues, and like you mentioned, athletic training and strength and conditioning. Mm-hmm. Before we get into the presentation, I also want to, get some insight from you. Was this always a direction you wanted to go in, being athletic trainer certified, strength and conditioning as well? You've done both roles. Was there ever one you wanted to get into more than the other?
Yeah, initially going to school, it was athletic training. It was kind of the sports medicine aspect. Mm-hmm. Athlete in high school. My high school was a small high school in Iowa. We didn't really have an athletic training presence whatsoever. It was kind of up to the coach of that sport to kind of tape you or take care of it if you needed.
Yeah.
So that kind of spurred my interest in it. Went to undergrad at Iowa State, grad school at Florida, all in athletic training kind of direction. My first employment outside of grad school was in Tampa through the University of South Florida, this outreach program at the high school there. Did that for a year and a half as an athletic trainer. During that year and a half, I got my CSCF certification. Again, just kind of always been interested in the weight room, kind of how it helps with the rehab process and kind of ties in both rooms. That was 2008 when the economy kind of took a turn for the worse. Our program at the time was state funded, so our funding was getting cut slowly but surely. Okay. I was the last person hired in that outfit, so I kind of knew if positions were going to be cut, I was probably the most likely. At the time, there was an internship open with the Phillies as a strength conditioning coach in their minor league system, and I kind of voluntarily jumped on board before I was axed from that program there. So I became a member of the Phillies organization, minor league strength coach, and just kind of rode that wave to where I am now.
Yeah, that's great. Clearly a ton of experience in the game. And obviously, we'll get it. We're going to talk about integrating strength and conditioning into the athletic training room. Real briefly, you work with like Dave Yeager with the Brewers who put on the symposium, a number of super talented athletic trainers in Milwaukee. What's the relationship like, every day, year over year with the athletic training staff? I know you guys are in different rooms perhaps, but how important it is to kind of be more than just coworkers with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing, again, more than coworkers, I guess what started off my relationship really well with athlete training staff there was when I first started in 17, 18, we would make a point to always have dinner, like post-game meals together. So, we get there at noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're eating together at midnight. So I think that's the time you can kind of somewhat take your kind of work personality off. Like you're still at work, you're still talking about work, but in some more relaxed settings, you can kind of get to know each other. We spend 182 days together for 12 hours a day. So you have to learn how to like somebody, how to get along with those guys, what makes them tick, what they do in their room. You just have to, figure out how to get along. You're on planes together, you're traveling together, spend off days together. So you just kind of build that relationship, get to know each other. And then that helps, again, work in a professional setting where you learn what they're going to do in their room, how it affects what you do in your room, and kind of back and forth.
Yeah, definitely an important bond there between everybody who are, part of the quote unquote sports performance teams. Getting in a bit about your presentation, I thought it was super interesting. You started by sharing the guiding principles. So, I work with a lot of athletic trainers and hear them talk about how important communication is between their staff. But there's more than just those guys. It's your team as well. I thought a key point you made was within the communication aspect, how frequently you guys are talking. Talk through kind of that first guiding principle of communication, and kind of how that works in your room with the Brewers.
Yeah, I think communication is definitely vital to any sort of relationship, especially between athletic training and the weight room. I think myself, again, coming back or having that athletic training background helps me relate and understand what some of the language that the athletic trainers speak that maybe not all strength coaches get exposed to. Again, I don't know what specific schooling for strength conditioning looks like. I was, schooled with the background of athletic training. So reading injury reports, with the acronyms that is prevalent in the medical world, PROM, AROM, all that stuff. Like you just have to make sure that the strength coach understands what that means, to make sure you're speaking the same language, make sure that they understand what you find, what the athletic trainers find in the training room, what picture that paints for them, and what they need to be aware of when it comes to taking the player through their workouts in the weight room, and not just assume that they know what the basics of athletic training are, because they may not. Yeah. And it goes the other way too. It's making sure that as a strength coach, again, the example I used is you can't just run through a description of your workout of the week and be like, all right, we're in the second phase of a triphasic program. We're going to work on compensatory acceleration, velocity-based training, tempo 3-1-1. Like the athletic trainer may have no idea what any of that means.
Yeah.
So just making sure that you both understand the picture of where the athlete is, what each room is doing, what their goals are, and then how you kind of help support each other. And then within that, you have, at least with us, we'll have a daily meeting where we go over the full injury report with all members of the performance staff, medical, strength conditioning, our nutritionist, our sports psych person when they're there. Everybody that has a potential to touch and communicate with that athlete that day is in that room, so they understand a basic level of where that player is that day. If we have someone who's on the injured list or rehabbing, every time they transition from one room to the next, that's another opportunity that we use to communicate with each other. Hey, here was the plan we had this morning. Here's what we found today when they showed up. Here's what we need to change. Here's what stays the same. Here's what we did in the training room. I know he has a lower body workout today. Can you help make sure we emphasize this goal that we're trying to reach? Mm-hmm. And then when they get done in the weight room, we walk them back over to the training room. He did lower body today. He had no problems doing this exercise. He felt something in his low back when he did this. You might want to be aware of this. Everything else he said felt okay. So it's just making sure it's a frequent update, because those little changes, a little bit of information that I may get from him in his workout or the athletic trainers may get in the training room may affect what each room does next.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting that it just kind of goes to show how many moving pieces there are and just keeping a player healthy, keeping them strong, getting them on the field consistently. And to your point, one of your guiding principles was supporting and complementing each other. So obviously you guys are working together. But like you mentioned in the presentation, players are going to have different goals. They're going to have different goals on the field, training room, weight room. So during a season, especially in baseball, 162 games, so much travel, players are going to have goals on the field, probably most importantly, to succeed there. But if they have goals in the weight room, but then there's also stuff in the training room, how do you guys go about supporting and complementing each other when goals may be quite different for each of your rooms?
Yeah, I think ultimately the most important goal is how they perform on the field and like them being able to play. Our manager, our hitting coach, our pitching coach could care less how much they can squat if they can't play, or if increasing their squat is slowing their pitching velocity down or slowing their speed down on the field. Like, all that is secondary. All the stuff we do in the weight room is secondary to what they do on the field. Mm-hmm. Understanding we're in a baseball performance driven role. It's everything we do in the weight room has to support them and their performance on the field. If it gets in the way, then we have to be cognizant of that and be able to be willing to take a step back and understand what the ultimate role is with us and what the ultimate goal for the player is. Mm-hmm. And with that, it comes with being humble, understanding where we fit in the role, in the whole realm of baseball and sports performance. It's being able to talk to the pitching coaches and the hitting coaches and being able to understand what their goals are for the player and how we can support and provide them the underlying either movement or strength or power development or demonstration that the player needs so they can do what they're being asked to do on the field.
Yeah. And one thing that I thought was really interesting in your presentation a couple of weeks ago was when you got into the principles and action phase of your presentation and you went back and talked about the communication, pretty eye-opening in terms of how much work you guys do on a day-to-day basis. So you talked about your daily medical meeting where you reviewing injury reports, planning for the day, individual player plans for that day, but also individual player plans for 1, 2, 3 weeks in the future. So first I want to hear about those, daily meetings and the importance there, but also how you guys manage your time when there's 20 plus players with you guys all the time. You're planning for that day with multiple groups and also planning for the month. So how does that kind of impact your time and your day to day?
Yeah, I mean, baseball, especially Major League Baseball, to do at a high level, strength conditioning and athletic training, it's not a 9 to 5, 8-hour day job. I mean, most days I'll wake up, I'll make myself get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Again, this is going to bed at midnight, 1 a.m. usually. Yeah. I'll try to give myself a couple hours to myself. And I'll usually start my work day around 10 or 11, and then I'm going until midnight. So, and that's on a good day. And then you back that up with day games, travel, everything else. Like, it's just that chunk of 12 hours just kind of gets moved around and shuffled based on the game time. And also to kind of help with that time commitment, I personally try to keep things pretty simple. Because the game and the day is going to bring enough complexity. Like, the more simple we can make our approach, the easier it will be to kind of maneuver and change what we need to do. Again, when that schedule adds the complexity that it's going to add. But I think being prepared helps with that as well. Again, trying to be ahead a week to 2 weeks ahead, especially with a player in the rehab setting, knowing that their next phase of their rehab, their return to play may involve swinging. Like, he's going to start dry swings and tee work in 2 weeks. Okay. Then we need to make sure that he's simulated that somewhere beforehand. I would hate for him, if this player, say, has an oblique strain, he hasn't rotated quickly in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, however long it may be. I would hate the first time he does that to be with the bat in his hand. I think understanding what he's going to be asked to do on the field, and then exposing him to that player to that stress a week or two ahead of time to make sure he's ready to accept it. Because as much as we tell guys throw at 80% or 50% or swing at 50%, they're not going to. So just again, putting safeguards in place to make sure we expose them to what they're going to do before they're asked to do it, I guess.
And, during the day-to-day, is there a certain time of day, just kind of give some people some insight into your day, like you mentioned? Is there a certain time every day that you sit down with the athletic training staff and go through notes? Is it, multiple times a day? What's the actual like day-to-day at the stadium relationship like between those two groups?
Yeah, so our full staff medical meeting is 30 minutes before our clubhouse open time, just so we can make sure we get that done, and then allow both our rooms and our staffs to be fully prepared and ready to go when players start showing up. So for 7 o'clock game, we usually meet at 1. And then that's kind of the anchor 6 hours before day games. We're not meeting at 6 or 7 in the morning, but it's 8 or 9. Again, just kind of based around when the clubhouse opens, and everything else. And then post game, they'll send out, the athletic training staff will send out the injury report. I'll read that in the morning, kind of review anything that may have happened that I may not be aware of, just so I can be prepared to go into that meeting to ask questions or kind of have my plan somewhat figured out and kind of in place to make sure I can ask the relevant questions I need from them. If this is okay, if they prefer something else, what should I be aware of if asking the player to sprint today or swing or throw, that sort of stuff.
And, one of the other pieces, obviously, that groups that needs to be in the loop are coaches and managers. Many of those you're in the dugout with constantly. They also, like you mentioned, may speak a different language than you, than Dave Yeager, than the other athletic trainers. How do you go about communication with coaches and managers when they want probably the most, information about getting a player on the field and how they're feeling, but you may, need to change how you communicate with a different group? How do you kind of manage communicating with coaches, front office staff, athletic trainers, when, like you mentioned, communication is key, but it's all kind of in different languages, you might say?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of learning what each person wants to hear, and again, like you mentioned, like what their own language is, and me being able to adapt and speak to them in their language, and also understand what they're telling me and put it into my own internal weight room language, what they need. We've also been lucky enough on the pitching side to have a pretty stable staff for the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. Again, with a small market team, a team that's kind of somewhat outperformed expectations, that doesn't always happen very long. But our hitting coach is there. We've had a little bit of change this off season, but again, it's 2, 3, 4 seasons. We've had generally the same approach, the same staff there in place. So it's a lot easier to kind of work together. If I'm able to go into the cage, watch guys hit, and just have conversations with them of what did you see there? What is this person working on? What can I do to help in the weight room? Does he need, how do you see his hips moving? How do his hips and shoulders work together? Does he need more time apart? Does he need to separate more? Does he need to get faster hips? Just, again, asking how I can support what they're doing tends to help get that conversation going and come from a supportive place where I can, and then what enables that to happen afterwards is I can then go to the player. Hey, I talked to the hitting coaches. Here's what you're working on. I understand this is what you're working on the cage. What do you think? How has that been working? Where do you feel limited? And then it's a 3-person discussion where the player is the one who's kind of driving both conversations, and we're all supporting the player. And then the player knows that I'm going to talk to the hitting coach. The hitting coach is going to talk to me, and it's all working for that player to help them perform and play on the field to the highest level they can.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of different phases within rehab and within recovery, getting people back on the field. There's going to be a lot of different viewpoints, obviously, with so many people with different backgrounds in the rooms trying to get a player back on the field or healthy again. When people see things differently, how have you learned to kind of work together, even though there might be different viewpoints in athletic training room and strength and conditioning as well?
Yeah, I think it comes it comes back to, again, support and compliment. It's being able to take a step back and keep the main goal, and that is player performance, player availability, and everything we do has to drive that goal to improve. And it comes with a bit of humility, checking the ego, stepping back, and be like, is what I want for this player really that important that it supersedes what the athletic training room wants or what the hitting coaches want? Do I think the hitting coaches are wrong in their approach to hitting? I hope not. Like, I don't have enough, stake in that room to kind of tell them that they're wrong. I have to trust what they're doing, trust that they have the player's best interest in mind and support what they're doing. And again, it's knowing the role of the weight room. It's to help support their performance on the field. And that's, again, the principle, the idea, the goal, keep that in mind, is I have to help the player perform and play, not help the player lift as much weight as possible.
Yeah, I think that's key. And you talked in your presentation a couple of weeks ago about like less than ideal handoffs in working with multiple staff members and players. From your experience, what makes, those conflicts and those less than ideal handoffs happen versus having very successful programs with, athletic training staffs and strength and conditioning members as well?
Yeah, I think the handoffs, again, it kind of goes back to that communication principle where things weren't communicated clearly or weren't communicated at all. I think I think sometimes it can come from a place of fear, like, he said he hurt his back lifting. I don't want to get in trouble, so I don't want anybody else to know. So then I don't mention it to the training room when he goes back, because now I'm scared I'm going to get in trouble or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the training room, they don't know that, his back was tweaked in the weight room. So they're going to have him do stuff. Well, maybe now what they're asking him to do is going to make it exacerbate it. It's going to make it worse. Well, now he can't hit today because now his back hurts. And it could have been prevented, if this player tweaked his back today, they could have done maybe some soft tissue work, maybe just checked his hips, done a quick muscle test, reset them. How's that feel? Oh, way better. Okay, now we can go hit. So now because I was scared, now I prevented him from hitting. Like, now my fear has kept the player from progressing and doing what he needed to do that day. And that just comes from a place of insecurity and me not being vulnerable enough to open up and be like, hey, this happened today. What can we do to help fix it? Like, it's already happened.
Yeah.
So now what's the next step? What do we need to do to make it better, to prevent it to stop it from getting worse, to help the player? Like, that's the ultimate goal we have to keep in mind. It's not about us. It's team first. It's the org. It's the player above everything else.
Yeah, it definitely seems like leaving the ego at the door is hugely important for both athletic trainers and the strength staff there. Moving along from the presentation and more so kind of guidance and advice. Obviously, you presented to almost 200 students. Most of them were athletic trainers. Talk about the benefit being dual credentialed like you are, and is that something you would encourage students to do as they kind of navigate through their professional baseball career?
I think so. I think it it'll give you a very unique advantage over other strength coaches or other people as well who are trying to work in the weight room, as far as being able to relate to the training room, to the athletic trainers, to kind of understand, again, from a certain viewpoint of the healing process, the range of motion, how that affects maybe their movement quality. You understand when the athletic trainers are doing range of motion and muscle testing, what's the point of that? What's that going to look like? How will that affect what I need to do in the weight room? If a pitcher's range of motion is limited, his strength is limited, should I put him in an overhead position? Like, those are just kind of intuitive things, I think, that come from being exposed mentally to both rooms, just in education and working alongside and working in both rooms, where I don't think someone who maybe just has a strength conditioning background may be exposed to. Not that they can't, again, just by being around, being active, asking questions in training room, but I think it's just having that educational background, that mindset. I would venture to guess it changes and skews the view of the weight room, the role of the weight room, especially in baseball where the biggest, strongest player isn't always the best. It's not a sport like football where our athletes are pushing other human beings around that weigh 300 plus pounds. Like, the greatest player, one of the better players in our team doesn't really do a lot in the weight room. And that's okay because he can hit 40 homers and steal 40 bags and nobody cares. So it's just making sure the players have enough strength and durability and movement quality and everything else to play the game and play 162 games. And some players that may be, just being able to squat 135 pounds, and some that may need 225 or 285. Like it's very unique, very individualized, where it's just what is strong enough has got to be strong enough. And what's that look like?
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made there. Like we all know, baseball's much different. Like you just said, they're not, no need to push huge humans around. But so as a strength coach, someone with so much knowledge like you have, probably the optimal, time spent in a weight room for any player. There's going to be variations for each guy. If someone's less inclined to be in there as much, but you think it's better for them, how do you manage the players who, like you said, may not want to spend much time in the weight room, but are succeeding? Maybe when success dwindles or something like that. Like, how do you manage each player's appetite for being in the weight room when you probably have a mindset of and knowing the importance of it?
Yeah, I think that fortunately, again, with all the data that we're able to get now with the testing, like that has opened up a conversation window where we can show players, we can show guys, hey, your jump is going down and this has also affected your pitching velocity. Like these two are correlated. So we need to make sure that you're able to have your strong lower half, make sure you're being powerful. That will help support your velo. Oh, cool. Yeah, this is your line. You're getting worse. Your velo is getting worse. Everybody else is getting better. Their velo's getting better. Oh, okay. Got it. And then you can get them in there. It's the same thing with hitting. It's the same thing with sprints. Like it's trying to find some way to show them what they do in the weight room has an effect on what they do on the field. And hey, your main skill is your speed and quickness. Okay. To do that, that has to be supported by some sort of strength, some sort of power foundation. Yours is going down. Oh, like I don't need you to get super strong. I just need you to get a little bit stronger than you are now. Yeah. And then it's up to me and our staff to kind of give them, what are they willing to do? They're only going to give us 20 minutes. Okay. Then we got to find the best 20 minutes. We got to optimize that 20 minutes that they're going to give us to get done what we need to get done. Like that then becomes where our expertise shines, where we have to be able to have 10, 20 different paths to the same place, the same destination, where if I only have one tool and if players aren't going to buy into it, then, we're pretty useless at that point.
Yeah. So do you think, hearing you talk about the analytics, the data, do you think that kind of lends a lot of credibility now to what the modern day strength coach does compared to back in the day when maybe there were no analytics, there was no data, there were no force plates, there was nothing to kind of showcase visually to the athlete, like, here's why you need to be doing what I'm telling you or requesting. So overall, do you think the analytics and data have impacted your position with the club more than most in a positive way?
I think so. I mean, I think at times the data can be overused and kind of leaned on and too much and kind of relied upon. And players are also at times resistant to do the testing. So then what do I have to do? Well, then I can, if player X doesn't want to do the testing, okay, like, do I burn that coaching capital by trying to beg him and come in, and he's just going to get sick of hearing me? Well, then he's going to stop coming in whatsoever to even work out or do anything. Like, then I've lost him. So I think just having that general understanding of how that correlates, like, all right, he's not going to do the testing in the weight room. Okay. Well, what else can I do to monitor his physical outputs? Well, he does all these in-game measures that I have access to. Okay. I'll just go follow that. And then I can kind of make somewhat logical conclusions of how his weight room stuff is affecting it. Like if he's getting slower, okay, is he getting weaker, or is he tired because he's doing too much? Well, when he works out, is he using heavier weights? Yes. Okay. Well, he's probably not getting weaker then. Maybe he needs some time off. Maybe I can give him a break this week. He's telling me he's tired. I can give him a break, see what happens. And I always tell the players, again, like I don't necessarily need the data to do my job. It just helps me do my job, and it makes it easier. That way, I don't become just a number cruncher where the numbers say this, do this. It's a lot of balancing the art of coaching and then also the science of coaching, the science of performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all really interesting. The presentation was awesome just to hear you talk about how you work with guys like Dave Yeager and the Brewers athletic training staff on a day-to-day basis. So we appreciate you sharing that. Well, Jason, on Inside Athletic Training, we usually finish each show with a segment we call Extra Bases. So
okay.
I'm going to ask you 4 real quick questions and kind of let you share some insight into your favorite places to work across the league. So we'll kick it off at first base, and feel free to take your time here.
Okay.
Your favorite, outside of the Brewers, your favorite weight room or facility to work in the big leagues?
On the road, on the major league side, at least, the new stadium, the newest ones, like the visiting weight room in Atlanta is really nice. The Rangers is really nice. Kind of those newer stadiums, they've kind of taken upon themselves to make the visiting side a little bit more attractive, a little bit more functional than some of the older stadiums. And they kind of view that as somewhat of a competitive advantage where, if other teams are traveling and I can be like, man, the visiting side is this nice. Like, I wonder what the home side's like. So it's kind of using that in a way, like, instead of looking at it as a way to disadvantage the team that's visiting, of giving them the least amount of stuff possible, like make it difficult for them.
Yeah.
They kind of view it as the other way of turning it into a competitive advantage, almost like a recruiting tool. So those 2 for sure, at least at the stadium, are probably my favorite weight rooms to work in, because you can get everything done you need to.
Yeah, we've heard from the majority of our guests who are athletic trainers on the show have said Atlanta and Texas are just far superior due to most of the proximity of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume that's really nice for you, as we talked about working with other staffs, being able to pop over and see, other staff members really quickly is super important. Moving on to second base here. You guys travel a ton. What's your favorite city outside of baseball reasons to visit on the road?
Outside of baseball reasons, I would say historically it'd be San Diego. I mean, the weather's always nice.
Yeah.
I've also been able to over the years kind of develop a relationship there with some of the special operators there that work out of Coronado. So I've been able to go over there, kind of have relationships with them, go over there and travel their facility there, see what that's like, develop relationships there, have them come to the game, bring their kids. We can kind of help get them on the field, just let them have somewhat of a normal day with their kids as a family, and just kind of share what baseball brings out in their kids. I have a 6-year-old son myself, and he loves baseball, and just seeing them, I don't know what it is about the sport of baseball. It's something magical. It just brings out the kid in you.
Yeah.
So just those kids on the field, their eyes are wide open. They're, our players are walking by. Our guys are really great. They'll take time to shake hands, introduce themselves. They'll play catch with the kids. So that's always a special time to kind of share that with those guys, and, show our respects and our appreciation for what they do, on a daily basis, going out and protecting our country and stuff like that. So that's always a good time to be there.
Yeah, definitely a unique city with Coronado and all the amazing stuff that goes on over there. And like you said, 65 and sunny isn't bad when you're, in Milwaukee sometimes. But moving on to third base. So athletic trainers and strength coaches are very, a few of the people who are not players or managers are actually in the dugout at times during games.
Mm-hmm.
Very unique vantage point, better than anybody could have. So outside of home in Milwaukee, what's your favorite stadium to be in the dugout for a game?
I'm kind of a traditionalist and minimalist, so I think some of those stadiums, the newer ones where they got video boards everywhere and it's more of a show than a game, aren't really appealing to me.
Yeah.
This past year, I was able to get to Boston and Baltimore, so I've now been to all 30.
Nice.
I think the Red Sox, then Boston, Wrigley. I mean, I know it's the Cubs; it's still a kind of our rival, but that's once the game starts, just the intimacy of it's just. I mean, it's historic. I like those two historic ballparks, probably the best.
Yeah, pretty common answer, and I don't think any baseball purist would argue with you that the history of Wrigley and Fenway is just unmatched.
Yeah,
so
they're not the best underneath. Like the weight room is probably not near the top of my favorites, but once the game starts, you're in the dugout. Like they're both pretty special places.
Yeah, for sure. Well, to wrap it up today, Jason, moving on to home plate here. Always love hearing these stories from athletic trainers as well. So when you broke into the big leagues, did you at one point during that first season have like a welcome to the big leagues, I made it moment? Maybe like standing on the line during the anthem or something like that. That's what we, commonly hear.
Yeah. That was pretty special. I mean, I was fortunate enough when I was with the Phillies traveling as a coordinator, I'd come up and kind of visit them during their regular season.
Okay.
So I was kind of exposed to that a little bit. But I always tell this story of, again, everybody kind of has that experience, like you said, of like that special memory, the outstanding memory that kind of sticks out as far as like, what am I doing here? There was, when I was with the Phillies, I was the minor league. I just got done doing position player stretch on the field. So I'm walking back in the weight room. Our AAA manager at the time was Ryan Sandberg. He's walking through. I'd just been in AAA the season before, so I knew Rhino. He's like, "Hey, Jason, are you busy?" I was like, "No, what do you need?" He's like, "Come with me. I got to go outside. I need your help. I need some help." I was like, "Okay." So I go out, not knowing what I'm doing, walk out there with him, and we go to our little half field to do infield work. He goes, "I need you to flip me balls. I got to hit ground balls to Jim Thome." I'm like, okay. So I'm maybe 5 feet away from Sandberg at home plate, flipping balls, and he's full swing, fungo, hacking ground balls at Jim Thome. And I'm just sitting there looking around. It's like, we got one Hall of Famer hitting ground balls to a future Hall of Famer. And here I am with 3 years experience. Like, what, like, how did I get out here? And I just remember, Sandberg's looking at me. He's like, "You think I'm going to hit you?" I was like, "I don't know. You're hitting them hard, and I'm 3 feet away from you." He's like, throw it on the outer half. And he's like, "I'm really good with the bat. I'm not going to hit you." I was like, "Got it." So I just flip balls for probably 10, 15 minutes. And it's just one after another, just rifling balls at Thome. And it's just one of those things, I'll always remember is one of the first moment where I stood out there and just like, I don't belong out here. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I assume anyone, even today, like all of us, you have a little bit of imposter syndrome, wondering why you're here, what you did to deserve it. But obviously you've put in so much work, but that's an awesome story. Sitting there, backfield to Hall of Famers probably blew you away. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, this has been great. Really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge from the symposium and much, much more with our listeners. And we hope to have you on the show again soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Inside Athletic Training. For more information about PBATS and athletic training, visit pbats.com. See you next time.